Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. I want to introduce the Lake House series. In this series, I'll be going over the design and construction of a lake house at the back of our property on the waterfront. So in June this year, we recently purchased this property and we got it for a really good price. Now, at 10,000 subscribers, I'll tell you guys exactly what happened in this residence and why we got it for such a good price. So in this first episode, I'm going to be going over the design from an architectural standpoint, if you will, essentially figuring out the layout of the structure, what it's going to look like and what it's going to feel like. I'm not going to get too far into the foundation or the structural, the beam sizing, none of that. I just want to kind of take you guys through the design process on how we get to bring it to the structural design standpoint. So this is going to be a little bit more architecturally tailored, but it's going to kind of give you guys what I'm going through in terms of designing this lake house for myself and my family. So like I said, the thing I'm most worried about is how the structure is going to feel and how it's going to flow with the rest of the property. You'll notice that the back of my property is essentially a cliff. It's a very high elevation. It's roughly 50 feet from the finished grade of the house to the water. And the lake house is going to be going in that area. There's also, as you can see, a long set of stairs bringing us all the way down to the water. So we want to incorporate that into it and make it flow. One of the other things I want to allow for is expansion in the future. So if we want to add other structures or other pieces of the landscape, then we could do that without too much interaction or too much distraction from the existing structures. So what I typically do is I go on Google Maps and I kind of take a topography view of the area. So while it's not super accurate, it kind of gives you an idea so you can start sketching and you can kind of start figuring out how it's going to look like from the top view. What I also like to do is I also like to go and take a bunch of pictures of the area. So I can have those kind of on the computer while I start laying out how the structure is, where it's going to go and how it's going to feel. One of the main features of our property is we have a gorgeous western sunset. So I want to be able to take advantage of that. So that's something I really want to incorporate into the design, is to make sure we could take advantage of that western sunset and be able to, enjoy it and have the guests take a look at it while we're entertaining or while we're hanging out with our kids. Speaking of kids, I want it to be very accessible to them. I want it to be very easy for them to kind of get in and out and take advantage of the space. I want it to be a place where they can relax, they can enjoy, have a milk, go watch some TV, and just enjoy the space and give them a break from swimming. As you can imagine, with these long stairs, it makes it very hard to go up and down to use the washroom and to do other things such as get refreshments and that kind of thing. So we want to make sure that we could extend our time at the water by having that structure there to kind of give us kind of a home base, if you will, to make sure that we can enjoy the water as long as possible and the kids can stay entertained for as long as we can. As some of you may imagine, if you have children, it makes it hard to enjoy a beautiful lakefront view if you're constantly going up and down the stairs to get them a drink or go to the bathroom. As you can see, the terrain is very steep, so I'm going to want to utilize a post and beam type construction. Post and beam type construction is essentially having a series of footings, and again, in this case, it's bedrock, so that's something I'm going to be utilizing to our favor. So we can have a series of footings, and then we're going to have posts or columns going up to beams, and then that's how we're going to frame our floor. So that's what I'm going to keep in mind. I'm not going to be able to do a stem wall foundation or anything like that here. It's going to have to be a post and beam construction. So on the architectural side, when I'm kind of laying out and feeling out the structure, that's something I'm going to keep in mind. So I typically begin by kind of laying out what I want the structure to look like. So that's when I kind of usually start opening up all these pictures, these Google Map views, and kind of just start sketching it. I might have CAD software open just so I can start laying it out on top of it and kind of seeing how it's going to feel. One of the things I've realized is due to the high elevation differences, I'm going to want to limit my width. I could get a common 12-foot length and it'll make it easier to maneuver for construction. That's something else to keep in mind is due to the elevation, it's going to be very hard for framing and for bringing materials down. So I want to keep everything to a standard size so we have less cutting and handling to do while we're there. So that's probably what I'm going to do here is I'm going to stick to a 12-foot depth of my structure, and then based on laying everything else out, I'll see what my width's going to be. Typically the first thing I do is I start drawing everything I want to scale and kind of seeing how it's all going to flow together. One of the things that's a must is a sauna. We live in Canada, so extending our time at the lake is very important. Based on talking to the neighbors and doing some research, a sauna could actually extend our lake season, so we could swim for probably an extra 2 months out of the year, and that's huge because right now we're swimming from between June and August. With a sauna, we could probably start swimming in May and go all the way to the end of September. Refreshments are a must. So we're gonna have a fridge. We're gonna have a compostable toilet so the kids can use it without having to go, up the stairs or in the lake or whatever it may be. And the big thing I want to have is a bar top so I could entertain people. We can have breakfast down there, have a coffee, and without having to have tables everywhere and keeping the whole space clean. So yeah, I'm gonna start drawing everything up and then we're gonna see how it's gonna lay out. One of the things to keep in mind is how we're gonna access the structure. So I'm likely gonna want to have the door on the side near the stairs or on the back of the structure to make it easier, so we can build, a small retaining wall and kind of walk into the structure, or maybe build a little landing off the stairs.
Alright, enough listening to me talk. Let's start opening Revit, which is the software that I use for my preliminary sketching and our drafting and design. So as you can see, I'm starting to lay out kind of the rough outline of the building. I'm hoping to do a 12 by 24, so that'll give me enough space to have everything I want in there, as I previously mentioned, and it'll also give me some extra space for flexibility. At this stage, since we're building on a cliff and it's going to be difficult, I'd rather have a little bit more space now than later, because you can't add more space. So we went a little bit bigger. Now that I've laid out my building, I want to start figuring out what I'm going to put in it and where I'm going to put it. So the first thing I do is I try to find the rough dimensions of an average fridge, which I'm planning to put inside of it. I then go and find the rough dimensions, and I use that. I then start modeling it in Revit, and I just do a little 2D floor plan. Here I'm just creating the group, which I'll be using to move around easily within my structure. I'm going to do the same thing for the sauna. I've decided to go 5 by 9 for the sauna, just because I didn't want it to take too much space, but I want to be able to fit 6 people comfortably without having too much of difficulty fitting all these people. The next thing I do is I realize I want a giant window, so I could watch the sunset from inside this building. The cool thing about the windows, I'll be able to put my bar top right below it and watch everything, have a drink, have a coffee, and relax with some friends. It's clear though the door needs to go on the backside. From looking at topography, I spent a lot of time looking at the field and making sure that that's what we wanted. I think access from the back will be easier, put a little retaining wall and walk into the structure quite easily. Now that I have the bare bones of what I want, I'm going to start moving it around. So I'm going to put the sauna in, I'm going to put a fridge in a tentative location, and then I realize I need a couch. Here are some average couch dimensions. We're going to go and put those the same way we did the fridge and go back to our modeling and trying to figure out how this is going to get laid out. So now we got the couch figured out, we're going to want a coffee table. So same deal, we're going to go on, find a typical dimension for something that we like, and then we're going to put it in. I think a coffee table is valuable to a place like this, because while the adults might like sitting on the bar top, the kids might want to just sit on the couch and watch some television or relax after a nice day of swimming. Something I like doing is start laying out the space to see how it's going to look and feel. I want to make sure that the space flows nicely so that it's very expandable for us and the children over the years. One of the big things I wanted to keep in mind is that I want to eventually put a window into sauna so that we could watch the TV from inside the sauna and keep it entertaining so we could use the space a little bit longer. So that about wraps up this video. As always, make sure you subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for the next version of the series. In the next version, we'll start designing some of the structure.